The Checkpoints is presented by pharmaceutical company GM Pharma.
We are gravely disappointed by the Georgian parliament's decision to advance Kremlin-inspired foreign influence legislation, said Matthew Miller, spokesperson for the United States Department of State on Thursday. In his remark, the spokesperson noted that such Kremlin-inspired legislation is not appropriate if the goal is to promote transparency. We urge all parties to protect the right of peaceful assembly. I will definitely veto the law. My veto is the voice of the people, said the president of Georgia, Salome Zurabishvili, in an interview with BBC News. The main concern is that this is an exact copy of Putin's law, which was adopted in 2012 and has gradually grown and developed. This is a law against the activities of non-governmental organizations, against the activities of the media, and this is a law against all international organizations of our partner countries, European countries, Great Britain and the USA, which support the independence of Georgia, the construction of state institutions, and the development of our economy for more than 30 years. Last year, the same law was rejected as a result of massive demonstrations and failed to pass. This time, repeating this law from the beginning is a direct provocation, said Salome Zurabishvili. In addition, the president of Georgia noted in the interview that the information about the funding received by non-governmental organizations is transparent, and according to the president, what is not transparent is corruption at the highest level of the government. This is The Checkpoints. I'm Elena Kwangelashvili, author and the host of the show, and the Checkpoints team is ready to sum up business and economics week for you. Thousands of people demonstrated in the Georgian capital Tbilisi on Monday, demanding the withdrawal of a controversial foreign influence bill they say is inspired by authoritarian laws neighboring Russia uses to crush dissent. A previous attempt by the government to introduce a foreign agents bill was abandoned in the face of mass street protests last year, but this month the government announced it would reintroduce the legislation, renaming it a bill on the transparency of foreign influence. The bill would require non-governmental organizations and media outlets that receive more than 20% of their funding from abroad to register as an organization serving the interests of a foreign power. Prime Minister Irakli Kobakhidze said the proposed law was needed to ensure the financial transparency of grant recipients, but opposition parties and independent journalists have said the bill is an attempt to crush critical voices in Georgia and sabotage the country's chances of joining the EU. They have said it mirrors similar legislation introduced by Russian President Vladimir Putin in his country. Georgia will not surrender to re-Sovietization, pro-Western President Salome Zurabishvili wrote on X, formerly Twitter.
The UK's support for Georgia's continued democratic development and reform, and ultimately Georgia's progress towards Euro-Atlantic integration. So the United Kingdom is no longer a member of the European Union, so I won't comment on that. Although, what I would say is that the UK's position on Georgia has been really clear over the 30-plus years of relations between newly independent Georgia and the UK. We support Georgia's sovereignty and territorial integrity.
The Parliament of Georgia supported the initiative to establish tax benefits in the second reading on April 18. The authors of the draft law are deputies of the ruling party, Georgian Dream, and it is considered in an accelerated mode. 75 deputies supported the change and 9 were against it. According to the draft law, those Georgian businessmen who own assets in offshore zones will be given tax benefits for transferring assets to Georgia. According to opposition MPs, the draft law is tailored to Bidzina Ivanishvili, the chairman of Georgian Dream, and its adoption is related to increased expectations regarding international sanctions. The initiative was submitted to the parliament by its co-author, the chairman of the Finance and Budget Committee, Paatak Vizhinadze. According to him, this change is not related to Bidzina Ivanishvili, and even if it is, nothing bad happens with it. Paatak Vizhinadze also ruled out the possibility that Ivanishvili might become a target of international financial sanctions. The richest citizen of Georgia, Bidzina Ivanishvili, carries out his business operations through offshore companies Kartu Bank, Tourism Development Fund, and Co-Investment Fund, which are legally owned by offshore companies. According to the draft law submitted to the parliament, when assets are transferred from offshore companies to Georgia, the receiving Georgian company will be exempted from tax if the operation is completed before January the 1st, 2028, and until January 1st, 2030. The enterprise involved in the said transaction will be exempt from import tax when receiving the physical asset from the offshore company in Georgia. Georgia's gross domestic product has been forecast to grow by 5% this year by the Asian Development Outlook, the flagship annual economic publication of the Asian Development Bank. Published on Thursday, the report said growth was expected to accelerate to 5.5% in 2025, boosted by continued gains in tourism and investment. The ADB said inflation was projected to accelerate slightly to 3.5% in 2024 and further to 4% in 2025 as commodity prices rose moderately. It said the fiscal deficit was projected to satisfy the government's fiscal rule by remaining below 3% of GDP in 2024 and 2025, reflecting further improvements in revenue administration, rationalization of tax expenditures, and sound management of public debt. Meanwhile, revenue was projected to rise to 28% of the GDP in 2024 and 28.5% in 2025 due to higher tax collections. The outlook read money transfers were forecast to stabilize at around $3 billion over the next 2 years, which could put downward pressure on the Georgian national currency lari from slowing or reversing inflows associated with Russian migrants. The ADB said Georgia was experiencing an aging population because of below replacement fertility, increasing life expectancy, and out-migration of working-age people. It suggested the government needed to strengthen social protection programs and create new jobs for the elderly to promote social inclusion, and noted it was critical for the government to introduce policies that encourage women to enter the labor force. The checkpoint sat down with Kiyoshi Taniguchi, regional lead economist at the ADB. Mr. Taniguchi, thank you for being with us and taking our questions. ADB released its economic growth outlook for the region, including Georgia. So how is Georgia doing compared to its peers in the region?
Thank you. Thank you for inviting this interview, and I'm very happy to come to this place. So today, ADB released Asian Development Outlook, and then we cover economic outlook of the developing Asia and also Georgia. And then Georgia is actually, economically speaking, doing well, and then the better than the average of developing Asia. And then, just for example, 2023, the average Asia's growth rate is 5.0%, but then the Georgia, we expect GDP growth is 7.0%. So Georgia's economic growth is faster than the rest of Asia. And then one of the reasons why the Asian growth is a little bit slower than we expect is because of China. And then the Chinese growth is decelerating, partly because this real estate, the market turbulence, and then that affects the economy. And then for Georgian economy, 2022 was a special year because it was windfall gains for the Russian invasion of the Ukraine, and then there's financial and also the human capital inflows. And then in last few years, this the positive impact is subsiding. So the used to have much more capital, and then also the human capital from Russia, but then they start to go back to Russia. So we expect this trend will continue. So in that sense, Georgian economy will be moderating to the next 2 years. And then we are expecting the 2024 growth is 5.0%, still resilient, and then but then not as high as the historic high of 2022. But the replacing the Russian the remittances and also the human capital inflow by the tourists or the remittances from other than Russia. So still the Georgian economy exhibit the resilience against this the environment.
Would you say that ADB is more conservative in Georgia's economic growth outlook compared with, for example, World Bank or EBRD or other development partners of Georgia? And what is the reason for that? I'm not aware of the other institutions' the forecast, and then we make an honest the assessment based on the exogenous shocks and also the economic fundamentals we believe the Georgia has. But this is a time there's like a replacement. So used to be last 2 years the Russian positive impact is subsiding, and then it is replaced by the pre-pandemic, pre-invasion factors. And then how much positive and negative is replaced maybe affect our institutions' the forecast. Mm-hmm. So what would you say is like the spillover effects for Georgia's economic growth, both positive and negative from the region and beyond?
I think if you compare with, say, Armenian economy, Armenians, the tie with the Russian economy is much higher if you compare the export, the destinations. Georgia is much more diversified. Georgia is more connected with Europe and the China and then Asia. So if, for example, Russian economy comes down, and then the higher the inflations or the lower GDP growth, that will affect the Armenia much more than the Georgia. And then in that sense, we believe Georgian economy is much more resilient.
Mm-hmm. Looking at Russia-Ukraine war effect so far, how would you compare Georgia with other countries, like comparable countries?
If you look at Caucasus and the Central Asian countries, there are countries initially affected much more positively than the other countries, which are Armenia and Georgia. And then the initial impact in 2022, the positive impact is much larger compared to other countries in this region. However, if 2022 positive impact is larger, then the moderating effect is also faster. So we see the Armenia and Georgia, the subsiding positive effect is much quicker, say, compared to Uzbekistan. For example, Uzbekistan is also positively impacted, but the magnitude of impact is much less or much more nuanced compared to Georgia or Armenia. It is because in the case of Uzbekistan, there's a more human capital came rather than the financial remittances. And then those human capital is businesses. And then there's a lot of technology, and then the knowledge transfer happened in Uzbekistan. And then the Russian entrepreneurs start the IT businesses in Uzbekistan. If this is the case, it is more resilient, and then the positive effect is not as large, but long-lasting. So this is some differences in some different regions.
Mm-hmm. Do you think Georgia still has room to maintain its high economic growth momentum? Because what the Russian-Ukraine war did to Georgia's economy at the initial stage, when it worked as a kind of like as a booster, was two-digit economic growth. Of course, it is hard to maintain two-digit economic growth, but do you see the room for maintaining more or less high economic growth momentum?
In this question, I think the Georgia has two important shifts to make, which ADB considers it is important. One is the private sector development, another is the green transformation. So the private sector is the key for the economic growth. And then the Georgia still has a lot of room to improve the private sector activities. And then this is the small open economy, and then the private sector should be connected in the global supply chain. And then still the Georgian private sector is limited, or there's a room for improvement for the better connection. So I think one way to thrive Georgian economy is private sector development, and then more investment, more FDI, the foreign direct investment should come to this country. Another point is the green transformation, and then there's lots of climate change, the financing, the opportunities, and then this country has a lot of, for example, renewable opportunities, and then these are still untapped the investment opportunities, and then there's a more, it is necessary to promote investment in the climate change areas. And also the Georgia is risky for the disaster, the prone country. So the disaster risk management is also the key areas to protect the economic growth.
By the way, when we ask this question, we get like two main answers, more sector, I don't know how to call it, but more specifically, like we get one answer that middle corridor might have impact on Georgia's economic growth. That's the first one. And the second one is almost always capital markets development could help Georgia, which goes along the lines of the private sector development that you just mentioned. Would you say that these two are the areas where Georgia should look at?
Certainly, middle corridor, and then many institutions, everybody's talking about it. The fact is still this north corridor, the corridor, economic corridor going through Russia is functioning, but with a limited capacity. So in order for the middle corridor to thrive, it is not natural, and then people have to invest. And then from the strategic point of view, it is critical because the country will better to have multiple sources for the connectivity. So maybe this is the opportunity. The North Corridor now is a limited capacity. So the countries along with the middle corridors should invest in the connectivity. And then this is something ADB also promote, the regional cooperation and integration. And then we have a Central Asia Regional Economic, the platform, it's called the CAREC. And then we are promoting this, the international trade and also the logistics across those the middle corridor countries, and then ADB also support the investment in those. So this is the opportunity, and then the Georgia should capture this opportunity. Then capital market development is also it is important, and then the most important, two important things for the capital market development is, one is the governance, another one is the human capital development. And then I'm not aware of the details of the capital control in the country, but then the country should open the capital market, and then we need the trust from the investors. And then unless the governance issues are there, then the investors will not come because there's no trust from the outside. So in order to thrive capital market, you need the trust from the investors, and then in order to do it, you need to improve the governance. And also the people have to have the well knowledge on the finance and also the capital market. And then the human capital development in the education and also the occupational the training is critical. So this finance literacy education is important to develop the capital market.
So what would you say is the main challenge today for the global economic growth and also for Georgia?
I think the main challenge for Georgia is it is in the middle of the middle corridor, and then the industry is not well connected to the supply chain. And then it is the challenge and opportunity. And then the key question is how the Georgian industry and private sector can be a part of the value chain. And then the private sector needs to be better connected and EU market and also the Asia market. So one critical issue is this EU accession of this country. And then also another the critical issue is the private sector to be the grown up and then connected in this the supply chain. Another the challenge and opportunity is the human capital development. And then I think that this country has a very good the human capital development, but still there's a room for improvement. And then this is the great asset to well-educated, well-trained the laborers, and then this will sustain economic growth for the future. So I think that it is important to invest in the human capital development, and also the country has to bring the gender equality, and then the labor participation for both male and female should be improved.
Yes, and my last question, and thank you so much for your time. Would you say that like external factors are driving Georgia's economic growth, and they are more important while talking about the challenges or the internal factors? And when ADB is evaluating or assessing the outlook, would you look at such challenges that are inside the country? For example, tensions around the Russian law that is very present nowadays, and this instability, political instability that might be hampering with economic development.
When you think about the economic growth, you have to think of the shocks you can control, and then the shocks you cannot. And then many domestic issues, which the details I do not know, but then many domestic issues are manageable. And then any manageable the issues, the government should take care and then intervene and then make sure those will not hamper the economic growth. But as you say, the exogenous shocks, any regional conflicts or the natural disaster, this is not something we cannot prevent. And then this is beyond the control of the government or anyone. Our suggestion is improve the resilience. And then you should prepare for any shocks. And then the country like Georgia, it is a small open economy. And then such countries tend to be affected much more than the larger countries like compared to China. So in order to improve the resilience, this is like a traditional areas you have to work on. So you have to have a hard infrastructure of the transportation, and then the better maintenance, and then the good the power supply, good water supply. Those will enhance the resilience. And then also the soft side, there's good institutions, good laws and governance, and also good human capital development. If you have a good infrastructure, and then if you have a good institution, if you have a good human capital development, then if exogenous shocks come, then the country will be ready for against those external shocks. So these are the ones ADB advocates, and then the government and also the private sector should intervene, prepare for the future possible exogenous shocks.
Thank you for very important insights, Mr. Taniguchi. So shall we see you in Georgia in May for the 75th annual
Unfortunately,
meeting?
I was not invited for the annual meeting because my superior chief economist will come and then he will do the remarks. But that's why I come here to ADO Lounge.
And thank you for taking time and taking our
Thank you.
questions again. The draft law on transparency of foreign influence, the discussions of which were held alongside massive protests, is the main topic on the last week's agenda. Georgia's Western partners have issued numerous statements against the draft law. Among them, the ambassador of the United Kingdom to Georgia, Mark Clayton, was one of the loudest. BMJ's Business Evening host, Georgi Aronia, talked to the ambassador about the draft law. Let's listen to what the diplomat has to say.
Mr. Ambassador, the situation that is happening outside this building and the context in which we found ourselves is a bit tough because the ruling party has reinitiated the law on foreign influence, which is basically the same law apart from a few terminology issues that has been changed. It is basically the same law as the law introduced last year, and then it was abolished, as we all know. But after that, a lot has changed in terms of Georgia's context, because Georgia has been granted the EU candidacy, and we have made quite a large steps towards EU integration. In your opinion, what is your and what is the UK's position on this law that has been initiated in the Parliament and is still in the discussion in the Parliament?
I think when it comes to the draft law on the transparency of foreign influence, which is its current name, we've already been very clear. We're following the developments of that law very clearly and are concerned that as it's currently drafted, it could have implications on the UK's support for Georgia's continued democratic development and reform, and ultimately Georgia's progress towards Euro-Atlantic integration. So the United Kingdom is no longer a member of the European Union, so I won't comment on that. Although what I would say is that the UK's position on Georgia has been really clear over the 30 plus years of relations between newly independent Georgia and the UK. We support Georgia's sovereignty and territorial integrity. Sovereignty for me is a really important word, and it has its roots absolutely anchored in democracy. Sovereignty is about having, your country having the ability to choose its own path. So, having said what I just said about the European Union, I can be really clear. The United Kingdom stands rock solid behind Georgia's aspirations to join the EU and NATO. And I can say that from outside the European Union because it's got really strong roots in democracy and sovereignty. Every opinion poll I care to read says that the Georgian people stand rock solid behind the EU and NATO. Every major political party says its goal is to join the EU and NATO, and it's down there in your constitution. So if I'm serious about supporting Georgia's sovereignty, then you want to join the EU, I'm rock solid behind it. When it comes to the current law, European colleagues have spoken about the impact on your European Union aspirations. I won't go into that. When it comes to the current law, what I'm worried about is as much some of the rhetoric around it as the law itself. The rhetoric suggests that the support that the UK and other partners gives to Georgia is somehow, it's all about us. I'm here, we are spending UK taxpayers' money to support the UK's interests. Everything the UK does in Georgia is designed to support Georgia's aspirations to join the EU and NATO. I worry that in its current form, the law will stigmatise and ultimately damage our ability to deliver some of that support. I've spoken in the past, just one example, a couple of examples among many, right? Through UN Women, we support any number of women-led civil society organisations who deliver work in, I think it's 18 municipalities along the borders of, along the boundary lines with Abkhazia and South Ossetia, right? That work is done to support what the Georgian government says is its priorities of reconciliation and non-recognition on Abkhazia and South Ossetia. Right? That, you know, if nothing else, that is all labelled as being work done at the behest of a foreign power, with all the stigma that that returns. It's nothing of the sort. It is designed to deliver the Georgian government's priority of reconciling with the communities, and therefore I think, you know, it's in that space that some of the risks lie. I could go on, but that's probably longer than you wanted.
Could we go so far to say that if this law is introduced, then the funding and the support in general, not only monetary support, but support, diplomatic support, political support that Georgia has been experiencing from the United Kingdom basically since receiving independence 30 years ago, could be threatened?
Nothing will change the UK's position on support for Georgia's sovereignty and territorial integrity. When it comes to, look, we are not, the law is still in draft. It is not yet through any reading in Parliament, although it's gone through its committee stage, and clearly there is a great degree of public concern about what it means. I will continue to engage with Georgia's political leadership on the law and the impact of it. We will have to see where we end up, but what I would say, you know, part of that support for sovereignty and territorial integrity is absolutely intimately bound up with Georgia, you know, a healthy and strong, vibrant democracy in Georgia. On that, although I can't speak about the EU requirements, what I can speak about is NATO as a strong NATO ally. I can tell you now what NATO requires for membership is very similar to what the EU requires in terms of democratic standards. And we fundamentally believe that a healthy, lively, vocal civil society is an integral part of any open democracy. So again, I think I'm very keen to ensure that that is safeguarded in Georgia, because it is an essential part. And it is about not only civil society who support the state in providing service delivery, whether that's, you know, some of our, not necessarily the UK, but allies and partners who support agricultural development, women's rights, services for disabled people, all of that would get labelled under this law, and I just don't think that's accurate. So I don't quite know where we'll get to. The UK will continue to stand alongside Georgia, but frankly, if the law goes through as it is, I think, you know, how we do that, it will just get harder. And I don't think that's in Georgia's interests, or indeed those of the UK.
A few days ago, you, together with the ambassador of the European Union, Hirchinsky, and the ambassador of the United States to Georgia, Robin Danigan, met with the Prime Minister, Irakli Kovakhidze, to discuss this law. What was the meeting like, and what were the outcomes of the meeting?
So we had so look, I think on principle, and I know there is a debate right now about ambassadors' role in public life. I'm very clear that the meetings I have behind closed doors should stay behind closed doors. So there's a fundamental principle on diplomatic practice that we stick to that discretion, and I'm not going to go into the details, but we had a healthy conversation about the law, the rationale behind it, and its potential implications.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador.
Pleasure. Thank you.
More on business this week. Natia Taktakishvili will sum up this week's business news and outlook.
The shopping malls declare that the demand for shopping spaces from the companies has increased and the facilities are loaded at the moment. As Galleria Tbilisi told BMDG, rental prices are up by 10% year-on-year. According to Nini Aduashvili, the head of the communications service at Galleria Tbilisi, demand for leasing spaces has increased both from international and local companies. At this stage, Galleria Tbilisi is fully loaded and there is no space for rent. The demand from different brands is very high. The shopping mall does not allow us to offer spaces to new brands at this stage. However, at some time, we may have the opportunity to receive new companies. As for the rental prices, depending on the demand, they have become more expensive by about 10% annually, said Nini Aduashvili. Some companies talk about the shortage of commercial and trade spaces in Tbilisi and other regions. The representatives of the retail sector say that at the moment there are no free space in large shopping malls, which prevents introduction of new brands in Georgia. Tegeta Cars started construction of 2 more European brand showrooms and a service center on the territory of Tegeta head office, according to the director of Tegeta Cars, Petr Tsakadze. He cannot name the brands yet, however, it will be announced publicly soon. These are 2 strong European brands, which construction started a week ago. We will announce pleasant news soon. It turns out that 3 new brands will be presented in Tegeta Central Branch, said Petr Tsakadze. Tegeta Cars has become the official representative of Zeekr, the innovative and high-tech automobile brand of Geely Holding, the giant of auto industry in Georgia. Tegeta Holding has already signed an agreement with the member company of Geely Holding. Holding weddings in various European cities became very popular in Georgia in recent years. Consequently, companies have appeared on the market that help Georgians plan a wedding abroad. The co-founder of Click Holding says that there is a special demand from such countries as Italy, Greece, France and Turkey. We have very good event spaces in Georgia, but there are couples who want to have a wedding outside the borders. We are ready for that. We offer countries and hotels with different budgets. That's why we often meet with representatives of international companies, find partners to answer all types of requests and make special packages, says Maka Kubusidze, co-founder of Click Holding. Company Click Event is operating under the brand of Click Holding. Click Holding has been in the Georgian market since 2017, which is constantly developing, and today under its umbrella are such successful businesses as Click Events, event management and planning company, Click Tour, leading tour operator, Click Consulting, PR and marketing consulting, and Click Studio, professional photo and video production. This year, boutique hotel Quiria, which is located in Tel Aviv, will welcome visitors to a new facility. The new cellar, Matisi, is located 7 minutes away from Alaverdi Monastery and 30 minutes away from the hotel. As the manager of the hotel, Tamer Samurashvili, told BMDG, the guests will have the opportunity to stay in the territory of the winery and use its services. According to her, various activities will be offered to the guests in cellar, namely tasting of wine and traditional dishes, participation in master classes, seasonal harvesting, winemaking and chacha distilling. Accommodation price per person in Matisi cellar ranges from 150 lari to 250 lari. About 15 people are employed in the hotel, and during the high season they add the staff. The hotel manager also talks about the challenges and says that there is a shortage of staff in service center. Boutique hotel Quiria is located in Tel Aviv and has been operating since 2021. The hotel has 14 rooms and can accommodate 35 guests. In addition to accommodation, the hotel has a restaurant with a wide selection of Georgian and European dishes, a wine cellar, a high-tech conference space, an outdoor pool and spa with a jacuzzi, dry and wet saunas. Cafe Bar Otuna, located in Sachkhere Emirati region, talks about the labor force shortage, noting that it's even difficult to find unqualified staff. Besik Guliashvili, founder of Cafe Bar, declares that they have been operating in the market for 3 years and offer customers both Georgian and European dishes. Labor force shortage is a challenge for us. It's even difficult to find unqualified staff who have the desire to study and be employed for a certain period of time. I understand it's very time-consuming job, lot of work, and young people want to have more perspective. Therefore, every 2 to 3 months, we change at least 2 people, especially waiters, says Guliashvili. According to him, since we are connected to the Raja Road, the number of visitors increased by 25%. As for the current year's plans, according to Guliashvili, a children's space should be set up this year in which approximately 40,000 lari should be invested. Cafe Bar Otuna in Saçkare has been operating for 3 years and offers customers Georgian and European dishes. In order to fully equip the restaurant, they invested about 200,000 lari. The facility currently employs about 14 people. A new store, Process Vintage Studio, was opened in Tbilisi 3 weeks ago. The space offers vintage and antique items to the customers. According to Teona Jajanashvili, the founder of Process Vintage Studio, the studio brings together collectible decorations, accessories from French chateaus, African handmade masks, German ceramic, and in general those special things from different countries of the world that have their own character, history and unique energy. According to her, 1,500 items are currently presented in the Process Vintage Studio showroom, although they still have 5,000 items in stock, which cannot be placed due to the lack of space. Process Vintage Studio employs 5 people at this stage. The store is located in Abashita Street, Vake district. Co-working space Ripple Space was opened in Batumi several months ago, which combines a common workspace and a venue for events. The founder of the innovative space, Anna Avechpa, notes that Ripple Space is a family business for the creation of which the initial investment was about 80,000 lari. Ripple Space facilitates to the exchange of ideas and collaboration between talented professionals. Events are often held by startups, so we try to reduce their costs, for which we made the use of Ripple Space free on Fridays, said Anna Avechpa. The daily entrance fee amounts to 30 lari and the price of the entire month is 570 lari. Ripple service started operating in the city of Batumi in September 2023 and it's planned to expand in the near future. Ripple Space currently employs 3 people. Tengiz Georgaia, the founder of real estate company Kidobani operating in Kutaisi, declares that the price of a newly built apartment in the city downtown starts from $700 per square meter. As for the historical part of the city, the price ranges from $1,200 to $1,400. As Georgaia said, only local companies are interested in Kutaisi real estate market so far, which don't supply the market with premium segment apartments. Mostly local population and immigrants buy real estate in Kutaisi. Those who want property for investment buy apartments in Tbilisi or Batumi, said Georgaia. Bread production company Zetamza Gemovani Bread plans to launch a bread production technology training course this year. Co-founder of the company, Irakli Chavlelishvili, told BMDG about this. As Chavlelishvili noted, in response to the lack of personnel in the sector, the company decided to offer long and short-term training courses to all interested persons, which will be held in newly renovated enterprise. The duration of the course will not exceed 3 months and retrain over 30 people at the first stage. He also noted that after the retooling of the enterprise, it's planned to bake about 1,500 loaves of bread per hour. The investment volume amounts to $300,000. The company Zetamza was established on the market in 2015. The price of premium quality bread ranges from 3 lari to 5 lari. Currently, the company employs more than 50 people.
Businessman Temur Chikonia calls on the government to recall the Russian law once again. It is illogical while the government is examining citizens' patience, said the businessman while commenting on the topic with BMG. Temur Chikonia does not believe that the purpose of adopting the Russian law is to achieve transparency of financing of the non-governmental sector, because it is possible even without this law. I don't claim to be a politician, but it's a logically incomprehensible and unacceptable topic. If people didn't like this law a year ago, what has changed a year later? Has Russia become more democratic or tolerant? The situation is the same as last year. Russia still occupies our territories. There is a war in Ukraine. Today, we have to think about the main goal and listen to the voices of the people who have to discuss and evaluate whether we have fulfilled the 9 points and whether we will be allowed to start accession negotiations. International partners are telling us that we should not accept this law because this will endanger the next steps towards European integration. And if we don't believe them, they will tell us, what do you want with us? Said the businessman, who intends to express his civil position by coming to a protest rally on Rustaveli. Georgi Shagidze, the general director of the largest bank of Moldova, MAIB, echoes the resubmission of the Russian law on his official Facebook page and notes that the rightful place for Georgia as well as for Moldova and Ukraine is in the EU. We have an extremely rare opportunity, perhaps once in 100, 200 or even 800 years, to become part of something that can bring stability and a better life for generations to come. How can we waste it on a misguided law that everyone except Russia agrees only distances Georgia from its goals? Let's not forget what Russia has done in Georgia. Have a look to the latest picture. The rightful place for Georgia as well as for Moldova and Ukraine is in the EU, Georgi Shagidze wrote. Valery Checheria, executive director of Rooms Hotel, states that the resubmission of the draft law on transparency of foreign influence in the parliament already had an impact on the business. Checheria told BMG that Rooms Hotels have been emptied. A representative of the tourism industry hopes that everything will be over soon and declares that our path is to Europe. In these 2 days, the restaurants and hotels got empty. All conferences and events are cancelled. This means that such decisions are very painful for businesses. I hope it will not continue like this. I think our path is to Europe. Our customers are mostly organizations that work in Georgia or local people. These events are cancelled because no one feels like going to a party in such a situation. Such a situation exists throughout Georgia, especially in Gazbegi and Tbilisi. What is happening in the country is very painful for me, said Checheria. Chef Luka Nachkabia responds to the discussion of Russian law at the plenary session and states that it is worthless to have something if you are on the wrong side. Chef Luka writes on his official Facebook page that after this position, like others, he is afraid to lose something. Those of you who are silent and don't raise your voice or can't raise your voice, you know, I'm also afraid that I lose something after making this statement. I'm also afraid that my life may become difficult. Either they will seek revenge in one way or another, or they will spread some lies about me, or they will interfere with my business, take something from me, close the doors to my relatives. I'm scared too, but you know, it's not worth having something when you look back and remember you weren't on the right side. Athletes, artists, public figures, I know that you are afraid of losing your positions and achievements, but nothing is worth anything if you are not standing on the right side, wrote Chef Luka Nachkabia. BLC lawyer Keti Kvartskava states that Europe and America do not have legislation similar to the bill on transparency of foreign influence. According to the lawyer, it does not serve transparency, and its only purpose is to declare organizations with a different opinion as enemies of Georgia. Keti Kvartskava published a post on her official Facebook page. Many people are misled by propaganda and think the truth is that Europe and America have such a law. This is a lie. Moreover, the European Court of Justice considered the law of such content to be inappropriate for a democratic system. This law has nothing to do with transparency, and the only thing it serves is to declare organizations with a different opinion as enemies of Georgia, which is equivalent to registering them as carriers of the interests of a foreign country. It is a lie that the state does not have information about the sources of funding. The state has this information and can request and receive it at any time. In this law is adopted, we will show Europe that we are not interested in their opinion and conditions for EU accession. That's why this law is unacceptable, and its adoption is precisely to pursue the interests of a foreign country. Keti Kvartskava wrote. Wizz Air maintains that the company still plans to expand on the Georgian market and to add new lines from Kutaisi Airport. Nutsa Shubashvili gathered details from an online interview with the head of corporate communications of Wizz Air, Zsuzsa Trubek.
Hello and thank you for your time. So my first question will be regarding the current situation in Kutaisi. We know that many flights were delayed or just cancelled. Please explain the whole situation. In your opinion, in what time can we fix this situation?
Yes. So I can confirm that the current situation happened because of the Pratt & Whitney engine inspections, which are unfortunately absolutely beyond our control. So this is the reason why we temporarily had to suspend some of the routes across our network, and unfortunately this way also some of the routes needed to be suspended from our Kutaisi base in Georgia. So to give you the background, this is what is happening. It's not only happening in Georgia, as I said, it's happening elsewhere across our network as well, and we do everything in our power to solve the situation as soon as possible, to have the routes back in our schedule as soon as possible.
You explained several times that the main reason of this, but what you can say to the customers that are, not very satisfied because of the situation?
We do everything we can to minimize the disruption in their travel plans. So when we can, and if we see that there could be some cuts, we have to do some temporary suspensions. We all the time get in touch with them, and well ahead we try to offer them various options to either to rebook their tickets or to get a refund or to get these credits. So we do everything we can once we see that unfortunately we have to take some cuts because of the situation, and yeah, we are very sorry about affecting their travel plans if that's the case, but we do everything we can to notify them as soon as possible, as soon as we see that their travel plans could be impacted. To be honest, it's very hard to speculate on time at this current stage. All I can tell you is that we are doing our very best to have the routes back, and to fly the Georgians to these destinations, and obviously to fly our passengers wanting to travel, for example, from Madrid to Georgia to visit this amazing country. So we do everything we can, and when I say as soon as possible, I literally mean that, because we are working very hard on that. All of our colleagues are very much engaged to have the flights back in our schedule really as soon as possible.
My next question will be regarding prices. For example, price on Dortmund flights is very high. What is the main reason of this? And in general, we know that some directions and flights are more expensive compared to last summer.
Well, as a general rule of thumb, I can only answer that our prices are all the time depending on demand and supply. This applies even this summer. Maybe demand was different last summer. Maybe supply was different last summer. So you can you need to always consider these pair in pair. And as a principle, because we are an ultra low cost company, our aim is to do everything we can to keep the prices as affordable as possible. This is our mission, and this is what we would love to offer to our passengers. Our situation is not super easy this summer, as we discussed before, due to the engine inspections by Pratt & Whitney. But still, we are doing everything we can to have affordable prices. This is how we can do on that specific route. Maybe demand is super high, and maybe this is the reason that customers wanting to travel to Dortmund would need to pay a little more. But surely, affordability is key. It's always been key, and it will be key when it comes to our operation.
And for this summer, what kind of prices we should expect from Wizz Air?
Well, I cannot tell you anything exactly about exact prices for the routes, but as I emphasized before, keeping the prices affordable, maintaining affordability is what we strive for. So this hasn't changed. It will remain the same. We do everything we can to have affordable prices because this is what you know us for. This is partially because you want to travel with us, so we wouldn't want to change that, and we want to keep the prices as low as we can.
And what about price differences between Yerevan and Kutaisi? We know that right now, if we will check the exact directions from Kutaisi and from Yerevan, we can say that in most cases prices are higher from Kutaisi. So what the reason? Because we are in the same region, yes?
Yes, you are very right. The region is the same, but still there could be differences. Costs could be different when it comes to different countries, even sometimes different cities. So costs could be different, and as I said before, demand could be also different. So there's a chance that demand is higher from Kutaisi, maybe because people traveled with us for long years. They've known us for so many years. They know how we operate, they trust us, they want to travel with us, while we haven't been present in Yerevan for so many years. So this could be, or this could mean a difference. It's very hard to say, but as a general rule of thumb, costs could be different and demand could be different. So even though the region is the same, it's not apple-to-apple comparison to talk about prices from Kutaisi and prices from Yerevan.
What are your future plans regarding base in Kutaisi? When can we expect new directions?
Well, it's always a tricky question to ask about new destinations because obviously I cannot tell anything until we know for sure what we are announcing, and then when it happens, we always speak up and we go out to press, and then we announce the new destinations. So our plan hasn't changed. We want to grow in Kutaisi. We want to grow in Georgia. Maybe this summer is not going to be about growth because we have the difficulties I mentioned already a couple of times, the Pratt & Whitney engine inspections. But definitely this is just a temporary issue, and we are gonna fix it. We are gonna overcome it. The plan is to grow, definitely to grow. Maybe even from next year, you will witness growth in Kutaisi, probably new destinations. This is what we are committed to, and we are very much committed to the Georgian market as we were ever before. Definitely, we will not leave the market. We will remain at Kutaisi base. We have base aircraft there. We just need to overcome these difficulties, which are actually beyond our control, absolutely. But once we overcome them, we will grow. So we are absolutely committed to the base, to the market. We are there. We have base aircraft there, and we will have even more, and we will grow. I can promise you that.
Yes, and we know that it's been about 12 years since Wizz Air entered our Georgian market. So how would you evaluate this period, and what were the main benefits, challenges and so on regarding Georgian market?
I think we are super lucky to have witnessed the development of the country. Also, we are proud to be a company who contributed to the development of the country. We took so many passengers from Georgia. We connected them with Europe. We also enhanced inbound traffic to Georgia from European destinations and also beyond. So many people know where Georgia is now. They know the flavors, they know the colors of the country, they know the people, they know the super famous hospitality of the country. So I think we had a great role in that, and we are super proud of that. We are super proud of this partnership with Georgia. We would never want to give it up. In a nutshell, I can say that I think we've been very successful in the past 12 years, let's say. And I just wish for us to have an even better and even more successful next 12 years ahead of us.
And what are the main challenges maybe regarding operating in Georgia and in this region? Because unfortunately, our region is not very, how to say, stable.
Well, I could say that infrastructure could be further developed, and I think that could be an advantage. But yeah, I think development is a continuous thing, right? We are also here to contribute to the development of the country, and when we think back of the development in the last 12 years, I think we could be super proud. But as I said, yeah, there is no end in development. There is no end in developing infrastructure. So I think we should just further work on it, and then we will be at an even better place and position in the coming years if we do that.
Thank you very much for your time, for the interviews.
Thank you so much.
And that's all for today. We will meet next Sunday, 11 a.m. sharp. But before that, you know what to do. You have to follow us on bm.g for more updates, news, and analysis in business and economics in Georgia, in the region, and beyond.
The Checkpoints is presented by pharmaceutical company GM Pharma.